I had a splitting headache, waiting for the MRI results with my younger brother Paul at the hospital. I had raised him since he was little. At this moment, Paul held my hand tightly, his eyes full of determination. "Sis, don't be afraid, it'll be fine for sure. What if it's a terminal illness?" I probed. His smile remained unchanged. "Even if it's terminal, I'll spend everything I have to treat you, to pull you back from death's grasp. Don't overthink it, I'm going to the restroom, wait for me." After waiting for a while, it was my turn to see the doctor. The diagnosis hit me like a bolt from the blue, late-stage brain tumor. With only 2 years left even if the surgery was successful. I returned to the waiting area in a daze. Paul approached, and I forced a smile, pretending to be at ease. "Paul, I really have a terminal illness. Should we treat it?" His expression changed abruptly, and he said coldly, "Terminal? Why bother treating it then?" I was shocked. "Are you serious?" He suddenly burst into laughter. "Sis, weren't you joking with me first? If it were true, I'd be an ungrateful wretch, using the money for your treatment to buy a car. Inheriting your estate and property, taking over your position at the company, and letting you die with resentment, haha." His tone was light, joking freely. But I felt a chill down my spine. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. "No more jokes, what did the doctor actually say?" he asked. My head started to hurt again. "It's just a headache caused by catching a cold." "That's nothing then." "Sis, there's something at the company I need to handle, I'll head back first. You can take a taxi home yourself." He left in a hurry. I wanted to call him back, but then I thought, with my limited time left, why burden him with worries? Maybe he's right, since I have a terminal illness, why bother with treatment? I still have some time left, might as well enjoy life a bit. I sat down, leaning against the wall. That needle-like headache struck again. Even in the hospital, all I could do was endure. After bearing it for a long while, I finally went to get the medicine prescribed by the doctor. At this moment, I wished Paul was here to help me get the medicine and buy me a bottle of water. Whenever Paul was sick, I, as his older sister, would worry sick, accompany him to the hospital, register for him, and find doctors. Whatever he wanted to eat, I'd buy for him. Whatever he wanted to drink, I'd get for him. Even for a common cold, I didn't want him to suffer too much. This is all my fault. He doesn't know anything, so why am I here feeling sorry for myself? I struggled to get the medicine, bought water from a vending machine, and took the medicine. As I staggered towards the rest area, I bumped into the chief doctor who had examined me. "I was just looking for you," the doctor said. Could there be a glimmer of hope? I couldn't help but imagine. The doctor said, "Paul is your brother, right? He left his earphones with me. He came to see you?" "Yes. He came to ask about your condition." I told him some precautions, but before I finished, he rushed off without even taking his earphones. "He must have been worried about you. You and your family should maintain a positive and optimistic attitude towards the illness." My head hurt even more. So Paul knew everything. Yet he still left the hospital because of company matters, instead of staying by my side? Beep. A text message arrived. There was an expenditure of $200,000 from my bank card at a Car4S store. At that moment, my world collapsed. The only person who knew my bank card password was Paul. I suddenly remembered what Paul had once said to me half-jokingly. A brand new blue car was parked downstairs from Paul's home, with a temporary license plate stuck on the window. This was the car he had always dreamed of, constantly asking me to buy it for him, but I had never agreed. I knocked on Paul's door. He opened it, looking sleepy. "Sis, why are you here? Doesn't the company have something going on?" I asked, stepping inside. "Rick got the time wrong, the meeting is tomorrow." I sat on the sofa and noticed that the photo of us together was missing from the TV cabinet. In the black garbage bag, a blue-framed photo frame was partially visible. My heart trembled. He knew I was seriously ill and wouldn't live long. Yet he not only used my card but also threw our intimate photo into the trash so quickly? Was he trying to erase all traces of my existence so soon? Sis, have some water. His expression flickered slightly. This seemed to be the first time he had ever poured water for me. Before, I would come to his place every week to clean his room, wash his clothes, and buy fruits and snacks. He was my brother, but also like a son, and more like a rich young master. I, his sister, was like a housekeeper. I put the medicine bag on the coffee table, took out a bottle of pills, and swallowed a few with the water Paul had poured. If only Paul had picked up that bottle of medicine and checked it. He would have known what it was for and what it treated. But he didn't even look, just sat nearby playing with his phone. The car downstairs is indeed very beautiful, I said, putting down the glass. Paul's fingers froze on his phone, his expression changing slightly. I was just about to tell you, the 4S store had a promotion. It's over 30,000 cheaper than when we last looked, so I bought it. But you used my card. After all these years, I had never really gotten angry with him, and even now I remained calm. You're my sister, what's mine is yours. Didn't you say you'd definitely buy it for me when there was a good deal? I looked up at him, about to say something. Oh, sis. I can't just spend your money for free. I borrowed it, I'll pay you back later. Should I write you an IOU? Paul scratched his head. I stared at him suspiciously. How could someone like him, who lived paycheck to paycheck and always asked me for money, possibly save up enough? Paul ran to the inner room and came back with a piece of paper, handing it to me. IOU. There was a line on it that stood out, to be repaid after 2 years. Paul had talked to my doctor and asked about my condition. He knew that even if I had the surgery, optimistically I only had 2 years left. The timing on his IOU was impeccable. In the end, I took the IOU. Paul seemed surprised, perhaps expecting me to say forget about the IOU. I grabbed the medicine bag and stood up. Feeling dizzy, I persevered to the door, cold sweat beading on my forehead. I'm sure Paul could see it, but he emotionlessly said, "At this time, buses are hard to catch. Should I call you a taxi?" My heart ached. His beloved car was parked right downstairs, yet he wasn't willing to give me a ride. The warm sunset light shone on Paul through the window, while I retreated into the shadowy corner cut off by the partition. This brother of mine suddenly felt like a stranger. I still remember how he used to cling to my clothes, following me around like a little shadow when we were young. I remember how, when he was bullied by classmates, I stood up for him with my small, weak body, fighting those bloody fights to get revenge for him. I remember his grand words, promising to protect his sister when he grew up. But now, I couldn't find even a hint of care or concern in his eyes. I went downstairs alone. My head was pounding, and I felt nauseous. I ran to a corner and started dry heaving. Nothing came up after a long while. Maybe it was the headache and the effect of the medication, but I leaned against the wall to compose myself. I felt a bit better after about 15 minutes. Just as I was about to leave, I saw Jenny, heavily made up, waiting at the entrance to Paul's building. She was one of the 2 deputy managers in our company. She was also my archenemy, often spreading rumors and slandering me. Like the female antagonist in TV dramas that you hate to the bone. She wanted to trample me underfoot whether I provoked her or not. Trample me to death, that is. This kind of bullying became even worse after I was promoted to deputy manager of the company. In the company, Paul was the one who got along with her the least. They had even had a fierce argument in the cafeteria. A while ago, when Jenny spread rumors about me and Paul overheard, he directly poured coffee over her head. Why was Jenny here? I was stunned. Paul came out of the building, smiling brightly at Jenny, and they actually held hands intimately. The blue new car's lights came on. My dear brother, so gentlemanly, opened the car door for Jenny and helped her fix her bangs. I wanted to rush over and demand an explanation. But the car had already driven away. Dusk had fallen, and my heart sank into an abyss. I took out my phone, opened Moments, and tried to find Paul's social media account to see if there were any traces of Jenny, but he had actually blocked me. I added Paul's social media account on my backup phone. He accepted. This was a new SIM card I got just yesterday, and I hadn't had a chance to tell him about the new number yet. The only thing I could see on his profile was his most recent photo update. Jenny wasn't showing her face, but her hand formed a heart shape with Paul's. The caption read, "Your future includes me." The background and angle showed it was from the Revolving Restaurant, the most expensive restaurant in J City. "Sis, when I have money, I'll treat you to a big meal at that Revolving Restaurant." Paul's words still echoed in my ears. Now he was making heart shapes with my enemy and promising her the world. I sat down dejectedly, tears flowing uncontrollably. Perhaps the heavens took pity on me, as crying seemed to ease my headache, but I didn't want to move an inch. When people lose direction, they tend to reminisce about the past. "Maggie, you're amazing. First in the whole school for the high school entrance exam. Ranked 20th for the city's key school. You're definitely getting into the city's key high school. Just 3 more years of hard work and you'll be in either B University or Q University." When the homeroom teacher handed me the admission notice, I was surrounded by envious glances like spring water. But my hand was trembling. Then, in front of everyone, I tore up the admission notice. My classmates and teachers thought I had gone mad. Only I knew that if I went to the city's key high school, Paul would have to drop out. Our parents died in an accident. Paul and I were raised by our grandmother since we were little. In the first half of our 3rd year of middle school, grandmother passed away too. If both of us orphan siblings were to continue studying, who would pay for the tuition? As the elder sister, I chose to work after finishing middle school to earn money for my brother's education. His grades weren't good, he couldn't even get into a regular high school, let alone a vocational school. I found him an art school, which was expensive at $6,000 a year. Adding living expenses and various other costs, it came to $20,000 to $30,000 a year. I gritted my teeth and supported him through 5 years of school. It was tough, but I didn't give up on myself either. I worked while studying for self-taught exams, first for an associate degree, then a bachelor's. I passed all the exams and got an excellent grade on my graduation thesis, earning a bachelor's degree. I wanted to find a relatively easy job. When I confidently applied with my self-taught bachelor's degree and resume, Jenny, as the interviewer, threw my resume into the trash without even looking at it. Bad luck is reason enough for elimination. Others have full-time bachelor's degrees. Who gave you, a self-taught graduate, the courage to apply? Interviewing you is simply a waste of time. She sat there, looking down her nose at me. I stood there, thunderstruck. Car headlights swept by, startling me out of my memories. Peeking out from the corner, I saw Jenny. She was drunk, alternating between passionately kissing Paul and pushing him away, slurring her words. "Your sister, how dare she compete with me for the manager position? If it weren't for that bastard Rick rehiring her, she wouldn't even know where our company's front door is. Serves Rick right for being so stupid. Now he's been demoted to the bottom. In terms of experience, ability, looks, anything, I, Jenny, should have been directly promoted to manager. Your sister Maggie, what is she anyway?" Paul supported her, saying, "You're drunk." "I'm not." Jenny pointed her finger at Paul's nose. "Tell me, between me and your sister, who would you choose?" "Of course I'd choose you." Paul's answer came so quickly, I was stunned, feeling a burning sensation spread through my heart. "You're not lying to me?" "Why would I lie to you?" "I don't believe you." "I'm even willing to go behind her back and give you the information on her big clients." "Don't you trust me yet?" Paul gently took her hand, sweet-talking her. My heart was being cut to pieces. 2 big clients who had been in constant contact with me suddenly backed out just as we were about to close the deal. I had suspected everyone around me, except Paul. My own brother, he actually betrayed me for a woman. Wasn't he the one who hated Jenny the most? Wasn't he the one who poured coffee on her head in front of everyone? "I knew you were the best." Jenny laughed, so happy and smug, she even started dancing in front of Paul. "As expected from an art school graduate, you act so well. That cup of coffee you poured, I bet everyone in the company thinks you're my mortal enemy. Maggie would never imagine that her brother is actually my man, Jenny's man." "Ha ha. It's windy outside, let's go upstairs," Paul said caringly. She seemed to maintain a bit of sobriety. Aren't you afraid your sister will check on you? Paul scoffed. She doesn't have the energy to come here. Jenny frowned. I heard you took her to the hospital today. How were her test results? Late-stage brain tumor. What? I asked the doctor. He said even if the surgery is successful, she'll live for 2 years at most. This must be the best news I've heard today. I can't walk anymore, carry me. Jenny started acting coy. Paul actually picked her up and walked towards the building entrance, step by step. I turned pale, my body trembling. Shivering from the cold, my headache was gone, but my body was frozen. If not for that, I would have rushed out. With great effort, I walked downstairs. Looking at the silhouettes of the two embracing behind the glass window, I realized I had raised an ungrateful wolf. I didn't rest well last night. I'm very tired, and my mental state isn't good. Sitting in the meeting room, I keep zoning out. Jenny, dressed in standard business attire, has unbuttoned 2 buttons of her white shirt, revealing an impressive sight. Her eyes contain complex emotions, and she glances at me from time to time. The manager is about to retire. The company is choosing between Jenny and me to fill the position. 11 key staff members will vote to elect the new manager. The manager speaks. Palm up represents Maggie, palm down represents Jenny. Whatever choice you make, I want to tell you, it's all for the future development of the company. Both palm up and palm down are important. Today's election is not the final result, it still needs approval from the general manager and the chairman. Now, let's start voting. I got 6 votes. I won. Finally, I can breathe a sigh of relief. But what confuses me is Paul. He didn't vote for me, nor did he vote for Jenny. I fix my gaze on Jenny's cheeks, her expression is hard to read. The manager asks, Paul, are you abstaining? Paul bows slightly, my vote doesn't matter anymore, does it? The manager thinks for a moment, I'm quite curious, who would you choose? I choose Jenny. I had already guessed this answer. For a young boy in love, even his closest relative doesn't matter, right? He's wrapped up in tenderness, so how could he care about this old nanny? But my heart feels blocked, it hurts. What's your reason? The manager asks. Paul says, I think in terms of business ability, experience, qualifications, and maintaining and communicating with clients, Jenny is superior. Moreover, she recently successfully signed 2 big clients. If I were to choose, I'd choose Jenny. Paul actually brought up those 2 big clients. I have grievances I can't express. Those were originally my clients, mine. The deception in the workplace has always been like this. I just never expected to be backstabbed by my own brother, even though it doesn't change the voting result. The manager looks at me, Maggie, say something. I stand up, supporting my tired body. Thank you all for your support. If I become the manager, I will work hard and strive for better performance. Jenny, not avoiding my intense gaze, is the first to start applauding. The applause is thunderous, the manager position is firmly in my grasp. My sister can't be this manager. Paul's words suddenly ring out. Under everyone's gaze, he walks to the manager and hands over a letter. What's this? The manager asks while pulling out the letter. Seeing the words resignation letter, he quickly scans the content, his face becoming serious. Maggie, you want to resign? To travel the world? What are you thinking? I'm stunned, how could I possibly want to resign? The manager asks, then how do you explain this letter? I look at the letter in confusion, a sense of foreboding rising in my heart. My sister doesn't have much time left. She has a brain tumor, it's late stage. She doesn't have the energy or ability to handle the manager position anymore. In her remaining time, she wants to see different parts of the world. Paul's words explode like a bomb. I immediately become the center of attention. The manager tentatively asks me, is this true? My whole body trembles as I'm about to speak. Paul has already handed a diagnostic report to the manager. You've been sick and didn't say anything earlier? Don't worry, the company will take care of it. The manager sighs heavily. But I can only laugh bitterly, glancing at Jenny from the corner of my eye. At this moment, I finally understand. Why Jenny remained so calm even though she lost the vote? She had a trump card, my brother Paul. Paul stabbed me in the back. No matter how many votes I got, the company won't give any chance to a late-stage brain tumor patient. My chest felt tight as I stumbled out of the meeting room. In the corridor, I could faintly hear Jenny's impassioned speech, enthusiastically talking about leading the company's business to new heights. I managed to make it to my office. How could I possibly calm down? Endless anger was churning inside me. The supervisor came in. "Maggie, I've approved your resignation letter." "No!" I shouted. "Even if I collapse the next second, I'll be working the second before." "Then what about this resignation letter?" "Paul wrote it." "Don't blame him. After all, you're his older sister. He's concerned about your health and doesn't want you to overwork yourself." I smiled bitterly. "Supervisor, please give me a chance." The supervisor shook his head. "What I can do is report your situation to the higher-ups. You should rest easy." The supervisor left. Almost everyone in the company knew about my situation now. They were pointing fingers and gossiping behind my back. None of that mattered. What really bothered me was what Paul said in the meeting room. How beautifully he spoke, forcing me to resign under the guise of caring for me. It was as if he and Jenny had rehearsed it beforehand. My phone hadn't rung all morning, which was unusual for a deputy business manager. I realized I was using my backup phone. My regular phone was left at home. When I got home, I found my phone was dead. I charged it, and the screen lit up. I hadn't even settled on the sofa when I heard the sound of the fingerprint lock at the door. I didn't need to guess. It had to be Paul. Perfect. I wanted to ask him what was going on anyway. I was curious to see what kind of explanation he would give me. "Sis, how are you feeling? You asked my doctor early this morning and found out I have late-stage brain cancer?" "Yes." Paul didn't deny it. "You really don't want me to get treatment?" "How?" Paul retorted. "Even if the surgery is successful, you'd have 2 years at most. But without surgery, I only have 3 months." My voice rose a bit. "Sis, if it was early-stage brain cancer, I'd sell my blood, my kidney. Or even take out high-interest loans to get you treated, because there would be hope. But now it's late-stage brain cancer. Your fate is already sealed. Treatment would just be a waste of time and money." I laughed bitterly. Is this something a person could say? Is this the attitude a close relative should have? I gritted my teeth and questioned him. "So you're just going to watch me die?" You're really cruel." "I'm just accepting reality." At this moment, I could no longer contain my anger. Is reality that when you found out I was dying, you spent $20,000 on a car you've always wanted? Is reality that you betrayed me and gave so many of my big clients to Jenny? Is reality that I worked so hard to put you through school, waited on you hand and foot like a mother, yet it doesn't compare to Jenny's false pretenses? Is reality that you can casually betray your own family? Is reality that when I had the absolute ability to get that manager position, you, my dear brother, stabbed me in the back? Is that it? Kicking me down into an abyss, is that it? I roared as I took a step closer to Paul. Paul stepped back. "Everything I did was to live. To live better." I laughed miserably. Live? Live better? How am I, a late-stage brain cancer patient, supposed to live better? I'm talking about myself. Yourself? Sis, what are you hung up on? Your body can't hold up anymore. Keeping the manager position would be a waste of time, wouldn't it? Yes. I used your card to spend $20,000, but that was borrowed. I was going to pay it back. Paul clenched his fists. My eyes could have shot fire. Borrowed? You have the nerve to say that? You deliberately set the repayment date for 2 years later, didn't you? 2 years, that's my deadline. You really calculated this well. Sis, calm down. How can I calm down? Everything you've done is like stabbing me in the heart and then rubbing salt in the wound. Paul, my dear brother, I never thought you'd be this kind of person. Is there not even a shred of familial love in your heart? Are you even human? I went berserk. The phone rang. It was the bank calling. The call from the bank eased the tense atmosphere between me and my brother Paul. "Hello, Ms. Maggie. I'm a bank account manager. You applied for a credit card at our bank, but some information is incomplete. We hope you can provide it." "I didn't apply for a card." "Are you sure?" I suddenly remembered that one day. This bank was offering free luggage for credit card applications at the entrance of a large shopping mall. At the time, Paul said, "We might as well apply for one since we don't have to use it anyway. And the luggage they're giving away is pretty good quality." So I applied for one. "I haven't used this card. Please cancel it." "Ms. Maggie, I just checked and found that on the 2nd. In the evening, you had a dining expense of $5,800 at the scenic revolving restaurant, using our bank's credit card." I glanced sideways at Paul, never imagining he would go to such extremes and start using my credit card. After hanging up the phone, I glared at him with wide eyes. "What's the deal with the credit card?" Paul gritted his teeth. "I used the card. I spent the money." At that moment, I felt dazed as I stared directly at Paul. "Tell me, how many of these credit cards have you applied for?" I asked through clenched teeth. Paul didn't give me an answer. In my mind, I recalled 4 or 5 similar situations of applying for cards. A stylish suitcase, a porcelain teapot, a jigsaw puzzle, and so on. These items were still displayed in our home. Perhaps Paul had only used the credit card from this one bank, as I hadn't received text messages from other banks. Clearly, I was wrong. One after another, the text messages finally came. A necklace for $5,800, high-end cosmetics for $9,500, luxury leather shoes for $3,600. The text messages from one credit card after another hit my vision like cannonballs. At that moment, I truly couldn't bear it anymore, my body trembling. I rushed frantically to Paul's side, my emotions erupting like a volcano. "You ungrateful wretch, is this how you treat your sister? Since childhood, you've eaten what I provided, drunk what I gave you, taken what was mine, used what belonged to me. I paid for your education, your schooling, helped you find work, taught you how to do business. And you? You want me to be burdened with one debt after another before I die? Paul, you're absolutely worthless." I stepped forward and slapped Paul across the face. My hand hurt, his face swelled. Paul stared at me with wide eyes, glaring fiercely as if he wanted to devour me. "If you die, it's all over for you." "But what about me? I need to plan for my own future too." I was startled, never expecting such words to come from the mouth of my closest kin. "You gave me food, gave me drink, paid for my education, brought me to work, arranged everything for me perfectly. But what am I supposed to do if you die? I have no money. A rented apartment. My work depends on you. If you die, how could those people possibly take me seriously?" I looked at Paul in astonishment. "Is this why you got close to Jenny?" Paul didn't deny it. "Yes, you're right. Jenny can give me hope. I can find happiness with her." "What kind of hope can she give you?" I laughed bitterly. "Don't you know exactly what kind of person she is?" "I don't care." I stared at Paul in shock. "You don't even care about all those scandalous rumors about her?" "No, I don't." Paul was adamant. "You've been doing business in the company for so many years. What haven't you seen? To survive, sometimes you have to compromise." I said hatefully, "What if Jenny is just using you?" "You're wrong, sis." "What?" "Jenny's goal was never just to become a manager. That's just a stepping stone." I shook my head. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Paul took a step closer to me. "Her uncle's surname is Howard." "Ben Howard?" "Yes." I finally understood. "Ben Howard is our company's chairman." "When did you find out that Jenny's uncle is Ben Howard?" "About 3 months ago." "Good, very good." Having experienced great joy and sorrow, I now felt somewhat numb. I looked at Paul, this most familiar stranger. "So you're using Jenny too? Trying to climb the ladder through her?" "At least I want to try." The next second, he fell to his knees in front of me and slapped himself twice. What was this supposed to be? A deathbed confession to me? Sis, you only have me as your only relative. This house should be left to me too. I was too naive. Paul, are you a demon? Do you want to devour everything I have left in this world bit by bit? Paul lowered his head, tears in his eyes. Sis, you have no hope left, but I'm still in my prime. I said with a trembling voice. You're my only family. When I die, this house will be yours anyway. Can't you even wait that long? Paul raised his head. I want the house, and I want the car too. I don't want to live like a scavenging dog anymore. Sis, your death is my hope. You're shameless. I shouted angrily. Paul stopped kneeling and stood up, staring at me like a knife. This is what you owe me. What I owe you. What do I owe you? I was bewildered. You owe me your life. I stood there dumbfounded. Paul almost roared. When we were young, our house caught fire. Our parents burned to death. If I hadn't rescued you from the fire, you would have died long ago. He rolled up his sleeve. Look, there are still burn scars on this arm. You owe me your life. Isn't that worth all this? I wanted to cry, but no tears would come. What a sin. Paul completely lost it. Why did everyone praise you when we were young? Why could you get into the city's top school with excellent grades, while I couldn't even get into an ordinary high school? Why couldn't I find a job after graduation, while you, a junior high graduate, could get into such a big company? Why do they all say nice things about you when we go back to the village, but look at me with such disdain? Answer me, why? I don't want to live in your shadow anymore. I want to live in a spacious, bright house and drive a nice car. I want to make those villagers who look down on me envious and jealous. I don't want to be invisible anymore. His voice was very strong. I was forced back. You're terrifying, Paul. I rushed towards Paul in a frenzy, but he pushed me down. I started convulsing, a severe headache spreading through my body, half of it becoming stiff. Help me! Only Paul was in the room. And he chose to watch coldly. Maggie, you're going to die anyway. What difference does it make if I save you or not? Once your illness flares up violently, you're in danger of dying at any moment. Just go like this. Everything you leave behind will pave the way for my future. Saliva dripped from the corner of my mouth. Paul, you beast. Sis, don't blame me for being cruel, it's the world that's cruel. I'll remember the good things you've done for me. In this world, you'll still have the reputation of being a good sister, and I'll be able to live a wealthy life. That beast just watched me like that, making my hair stand on end. He was like a fierce ghost from hell, coming to claim my life. My vision became increasingly blurry, my body convulsing. Paul brought his mouth close to my ear. Maggie, before you die, let me tell you one more secret. That fire, I started it. He laughed hideously, laughing for a long time. As he laughed, tears started flowing, and then he began to sob loudly. He held my hand, and as I was on the brink of death, I didn't know if it was confession or just an emotional outburst. He said, I've kept this secret in my heart for so many years, so many years. I can see Mom and Dad's helpless faces in the big fire. I've been tormented by guilt. Every time I see you, the more kind you are to me, the deeper that sense of guilt becomes. You're like a nightmare, tormenting me constantly. I didn't mean to start the fire, but I can't change the outcome. I'm scared. I can't tell anyone about this. Don't blame me. Maybe only after you die will I be able to find peace. I suddenly opened my eyes. So you admit it. Paul fell back in shock, panicking. What are you talking about? I stood up easily. You spent 5 years at the art school, studying film and television performance. I stayed in your city, working to pay for your education, and also audited classes at that school for 5 years. You can act, and my acting isn't bad either. Paul looked at me in terror. What do you mean by that? I never thought that the fire back then was really set by you. I didn't know the truth back then. Not until I met Dr. Bell. He changed his name. His original surname was Owen, called Simon Owen. Like you and me, he was also from Owen Village. The moment I said the name Simon Owen, Paul became even more flustered, his face turning ashen. I said, Simon Owen, your childhood playmate. His family used to make fireworks and firecrackers. You were mischievous and used the $2 your parents gave you for books to buy some gunpowder from him. In the middle of the night, while your parents were sound asleep, you tinkered with the gunpowder in the house and ignited the lamp oil stored in the corner of the thatched cottage. The fire started, you were scared, didn't dare to call out, and just ran out of the small house yourself. When you realized the fire was getting bigger and bigger, you finally came back and dragged me out. By the time our parents woke up and tried to escape, the entire house had collapsed, burying them in the sea of fire. They didn't make it out alive. Am I right? Paul stared in horror, his eyes wide, and his nose suddenly started bleeding. These are all your guesses. Your speculations. I sneered, your eyes have given me the answer. Paul, you truly are a demon. You have been since childhood. Paul shouted, I won't admit to anything. I looked at Paul calmly. It doesn't matter, none of it matters anymore. At least I've solved the mystery from back then. But Paul said, you're about to die. Why do you still care about these things? I still have a bright future ahead, plenty of time. Maggie, do you really have the heart to ruin me? I stared at Paul, it's you who doesn't have time. The one with a brain tumor isn't me, it's you. Blood flowed more profusely from Paul's nose. What nonsense are you talking about? I looked at him, you lost consciousness once a week ago. I was the one who took you to the hospital, and it was then that I saw Simon Owen. He recognized both of us. Our appearances haven't changed much, but he has changed a lot. The CT scan results showed that you have late-stage brain cancer. I didn't dare to tell you. Simon Owen told me about some things from our childhood. And that's when I truly realized that you must have been the one who set the fire. But how could you possibly admit to such a thing voluntarily? So Simon Owen and I set up this scenario. Just to get you to reveal the hidden truth. I just never imagined you would go to such extremes. Paul, with bloodshot eyes, rushed towards me, but suddenly stumbled and fell. His body began to convulse. I still called 911, at least my humanity hasn't completely vanished. In the conference room, Jenny confidently presented her meticulously prepared PPT, detailing her plans as the future business director. At this moment, Chairman Ben Howard entered with the manager and 2 plainclothes officers. Now, I'll announce the personnel appointment. Ben Howard's words silenced the room. Maggie is appointed as the business director. Amidst the commotion, Jenny looked at the manager and chairman in disbelief. How is this possible? Maggie is seriously ill, how can she handle the job? Ben Howard raised an eyebrow, I've seen her report, it's just trigeminal neuralgia, nothing serious. Jenny urgently refuted, no, she has late-stage brain cancer. You've got it wrong. The one who's seriously ill is her brother Paul. He's still in the hospital fighting for his life. Jenny was dumbfounded. Ben Howard glanced at the manager, who spoke gravely. Jenny, upon investigation, you're suspected of serious economic crimes. The company has decided to suspend all your duties. You'll go with the economic investigation officers for questioning. Jenny staggered and collapsed to the ground. The 2 plainclothes officers took her away. She looked at me with a face full of malice and unwillingness, while I just looked relaxed. The conference room was cleared out. Only Ben Howard and I remained. Maggie, I've been holding the vice president position for you. Why do you insist on staying on the front lines? Ben Howard asked. I smiled, let me start from the grassroots. Familiarize myself with the business before taking on a heavy responsibility. It's more prudent this way. He sighed, we've been separated for many years. I don't want you to struggle too much. I chuckled lightly, I'm used to it already. Ben Howard said heavily, in a couple of days, accompany me to visit your mother's grave. In all these years you were lost, she fell ill with depression and passed away uneasily. I will, Dad. Ben Howard is my biological father. He had been searching for me for over 20 years, leaving DNA samples at many hospitals. We recognized each other a month ago. As for Paul, he still doesn't know that I'm not his biological sister. If that fire hadn't been set by Paul, I would have been willing to give him everything of mine. But knowing the truth of the matter, I can't pretend to be indifferent. Such is fate. I'm not a sister who blindly supports her brother. Let him fend for himself. This is the price of making mistakes.